Patrocínio Sebrae, a força do empreendedor brasileiro. Apoio Governo do Estado do Ceará. Novas ideias, novas conquistas.
Fortaleza reduziu a taxa de contágio do coronavírus. Mas a pandemia não acabou. Temos que continuar a nos prevenir. Lave as mãos constantemente. Não toque nos olhos, nariz e boca. Higienize suas compras e alimentos. Se sair de casa, mantenha 2 metros de distância de outras pessoas. E sempre use máscara. A prevenção ainda é a única forma de nos proteger do coronavírus.
Hello everyone, it's a pleasure for us to be here with these 2 special persons. Jim Paterson, it's the CEO of ValOre, a Canadian company that owns a project, a mining project in Ceará, and as well as Luís Maurício Azevedo. He is a director in ValOre and at Jangada Mines. And he's the president of ABPM, that's Association of Business Mining Entrepreneurs in Brazil. And we are very happy to talk to them today to ask a few questions about what brought them to Ceará, to invest in Ceará, and what do they think about the environment of doing business in Ceará, and what are the perspectives of the mining sector, especially in Ceará in the years to come. So with this quick introduction, I'd like to handle the words to Jim Paterson. Thank you, Jim.
Dr. Tomás, thank you so much. Muito obrigado. It is a great pleasure to be here today, and it is a great pleasure for ValOre to do business in Brazil and Ceará State. One of the things that we find in our business is that investors will decide in many ways whether a country or a state is a good place to invest and do work. And in our case, what they have shown us that they like is very good people. So we've connected with people like you and Luís Azevedo, good contacts from a political perspective, federally, and from a state perspective, and in the city of Fortaleza. Investors like when the population is well educated, when the roads are maintained, when the infrastructure is helpful in terms of supporting business. And they really like when there's clarity in terms of the laws and taxation and permitting. And what we have found in working with Brazil and the people on this call is that we're getting clarity, we're getting support, and it is a wonderful place to work. So we thank you.
Now I'd like to hear a bit from Luís Azevedo. Luís, please.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to have you here with me speaking about Ceará, a place which I enjoy very much, which I start my career exploring as a geologist in Ceará back to 1988, and which brought me back recently, around 4 years ago, when we found an opportunity in platinum, and now I'm also developing a ferrovanadium project as well. Well, I think it's very interesting. You ask why Ceará? Well, Ceará is one of those states that do not have tradition in mining, and we don't know why. The people are friendly to mine. The government is a big supporter to mine. And I think as other states of Brazil, is a matter of absence of investment. Just that because Ceará has not become a powerful state in terms of mining. In terms of geology, it's not very well known, which tells you there is opportunities there. In terms of power, Ceará has great sunshine, has a lot of wind. So in terms of new power source, Ceará is probably the most advanced state in Brazil at the moment. In terms of infrastructure, as Jim pointed, roads are very good. They cross all the states, and this is very important for mining. And on top of that, you have one of the most advanced ports, and for sure, industry is becoming much more sophisticated, and which brings you skills, brings you potential for not just be a state where mine products can be generated, but the infrastructure that will benefit other projects will probably come through as well. So in my opinion, today you don't have too many traditional in terms of mining industry in Ceará, but if we both come back 10 years later, we're probably going to have a lot of people beside us talking about mining projects in Ceará, for sure.
In your view, Jim and Luis, what should be done by government to support even more and to help to develop this mining tradition, this mining culture? We have a long history of the granites and marbles, and we are very famous because of the granito branco Ceará that is used in many constructions around the globe. And as you said before, we have a great infrastructure. We have a very good port with many connections to the world. What else should we do to help to develop even more? In your perspective, Jim, as a member of an international group that develops many projects around the globe, especially in other countries, in the same establishment as Brazil, what do you think would be something that attract even more the investors from abroad to develop projects, especially mining here in Ceará?
Well, I will say sometimes when you give advice, you tell people to start doing something they aren't already doing, so they make a change. But in the case of communication, I would say keep doing what you're doing and doing more of it. As an example, this exercise, this presentation and interview today, I'm fully aware that you're conducting this in English. And obviously, it would be perhaps better suited for the Brazilian audience to do it conducted in Portuguese. But what you're actually doing is showing to the world that you're open to communicating in more than one language. And so that shows a vision that you understand there's a whole globe out there of potential investors, and to maximize that audience, you are making an effort, and English is good. And also you are very good at maintaining a presence at conferences. Before the pandemic, there was lots of marketing that was happening from A&M and the country of Brazil. The last time I saw both of you in person was in Toronto for one of the world's largest mining conferences, and Brazil had a great presence there. And in particular, Dr. Tomás, you were there speaking, Dr. Tomás, you were there speaking, and you were very clear about permitting and timeframes, and your government ministry's focus on reducing timeframes and making things clear, and helping people understand the process of moving projects from exploration into production. That's very important because, and really to give you a sense, some countries make no effort at all to try to educate the foreign investor on the procedures to advance a mining project. What are the rules? What is the tax percentage? You know, what are the withholdings? What steps do companies need to make to advance a project? And they give no information. Whereas Brazil and what we're doing, things like this today, really educate the global audience, and they're very, very important and have a huge impact.
Luís, what's your perspective?
Thank you. Well, first, I agree with Jim, what Jim said, 100%. For sure, communication in these days show a friend environmental to mining business is very important, especially when we are in a country that we had some accidents in mining in the past. So probably investors are thinking that the community of Brazil are not friendly to mining. And we have to say to them that we had accidents like any other countries had before, but we are very mature enough to understand the accidents needs to be prevented and need to be cured, and they have been. But I would go in a little bit more detail. In the world of today, there is a dispute, especially after coronavirus, where the investments in mining have been reduced in terms of exploration globally. People say about 40%. We're only going to know probably next year, but people are saying like exploration money have been reduced to 40 to 60%. So whatever you are, you need to attract that capital. And we are talking about new ventures. So we need to make sure that what happens here is competitive to other countries, is competitive to other states. So if I would give advice for the state of Pará, they need to work out in a legislation, especially in terms of environmental, that is tailor-made. For instance, I'll give you an example. You need to drill today, and there is a lack of capacity in terms of drilling machines. You can't rely that the machines are going to be available forever until you get your permit for drilling. And we know that the drilling do not hurt the environmental. Maybe the environmental experts at your departments never seen a drill machine before, and they think you're going to just cut from Ceará to Japan, but in fact, you're just briefly going to touch the ground. You're going to do 100 meters, maximum 150 meters. So that creates zero impact. In fact, every time that we drill in Ceará, we are helping Ceará trying to find water, because if we don't find the water,
yes,
or we find water. So it's good. You're testing the aquifers of Ceará. Another thing is that municipalities and culture sometimes are a little bit refractory to mining because they only have the image of the accidents. And I think it's very important if the states combined with the mayors do communicate, as Jim said, what is really mining, that it probably, in the case of Ceará, we are not going to find huge mines. We're going to find medium to small mines, which are in fact better to Ceará, because small and medium, they normally are not so mechanized. They are not so much, let's say, they use more people. And we have to understand that in the whole country of Brazil, one of the biggest problems that we need to face is the unemployment. So I think if you can try to really put the legislation as countries like Canada, which Jim is very familiar, which are very friendly to mining, and also Australia, you may shortcut the time between a project become a mine. And this is not just the best interest of a mining company, it is the best interest of the Ceará people as well, because that means jobs will become available in a shorter time.
I will make a comment, and the same is in Brazil as in Canada, where Luís was talking about you can't generalize, and each state, let's say in Brazil, might be different with respect to mining. I know in Canada, each province is very different towards how they treat mining ventures. And it directly relates to how much investment the mining companies and the exploration companies are willing to make in those provinces. So it does make a huge difference. With respect to employment, I see it a little differently. I see opportunities as projects grow, as more money gets invested into the project. It's very big in terms of the impact to the community, because not only jobs, but think about the new businesses that the local people can start and grow to service the mining companies. There's transportation opportunities, there's food and catering and logistics, there's educational opportunities, there's road building, there's bulldozer, there's equipment rentals, there's all these things. The people don't necessarily have to be employees. They can start their own businesses, and they'll have a wonderful customer that is looking to support them. But what needs to happen first is that project needs to grow and have success and start attracting capital from, for example, Canadian investors or European investors, and they will funnel through right down to that project level. So it's a wonderful ecosystem. With success, the local communities can really benefit as well.
Jim, I'd like to ask you something very particular in the ValOre, how ValOre found this project here in Ceará, or even how does other companies from the Discovery Group, they search for projects in many countries. How did you reach us in here? How did you reach Luís, so we can learn from this experience to know how to show off to other companies like you, so we can help to develop these other projects that Ceará has, or even to make Ceará interesting for exploration. And to Luís afterwards, I'd like to ask, you told us, Luís, that Ceará doesn't have many large deposits like we see in Pará, for example. But how do how does this small deposits or smaller deposits than these big ones, these huge ones, are interesting to the market as well? And for which companies, what are the characteristics of the companies that are interested in these kinds of deposits that we have in Ceará, for example? So I'd like to handle for Jim first, and to Luís.
Okay. Well, I would have to give Luís a lot of credit for our knowledge of the project, and it's because Luís is very international, and he works with publicly traded companies, and one of the publicly traded companies that Luís works with is called Jangada, and they're listed on the AIM market in London. And so I was able to, when I could not sleep one night, I was looking on the internet, and I saw Jangada Mines, I saw the presentation, I saw a video that was made by Jangada, and I was very interested in that project. So that's a very good example of how the marketing for Ceará State was done by a company that was based in London and traded on the London stock or the AIM listed market. And we will do the same thing for Ceará State, because you've seen me talk. I show pictures of Fortaleza, I show pictures of the port, I show pictures of the highway. These are the international airport, the beautiful airport in Fortaleza. These are things that we showcase to the world because we're trying to educate the world. We're trying to say, look, There are costs associated with mining, but one of the beautiful things about Ceará state is that that state invests in infrastructure. It will help with the supply chain. It will help with the people. It will help with access. It will help with the port and logistics. This is very important to have the support. And we will then market that to the world. So people in Switzerland, Hong Kong, Buenos Aires, Toronto, New York, Boston, Los Angeles, maybe they have never heard of Fortaleza before, but they will if they talk to me.
Excellent. Luis,
I can
please.
promise you.
Thank you.
And I can guarantee he is a big promoter of Ceará today. No doubt about that.
I have seen it. I have seen it in many opportunities over the conference in Canada, in PDAC, but in others as well. I've seen a presentation that he has done to the investors in ValOre, and we are very pleased to have a company like ValOre and Jangada invest in Ceará, because I think we're partners in developing our state, and especially in mining. Mm-hmm. That's not a very traditional industry in here. So that's a kind of partnership, an international partnership that we are keen to do.
And we'll let Luis finish what he's going to say, but I have lots to say about the positive impacts of working together. So maybe Luis, you go first.
In terms of why we went to there, how do you found the positive? Look, this deposit had been founded back on the 70s. And because it's a platinum deposit, and platinum mainly exists in Africa and Russia, a lot of companies had this interesting by the project. But normally, companies always desire to have the project with very high grades, very large amount of tonnage, and sometimes there is project that doesn't have that size, or to get to that size, or to get that grade, they need to be a lot explored. My past history say that you can never say this project is done. We cannot say ever that there is no deposit there. And Pedra Branca and Jangada today, ValOre and Jangada today are proofs of that. Those deposits were always there. They've been tested by large companies, which much more traditional. But a guy like Jim is doing a great job putting together an exploration team, which for sure will develop the project. And we're gonna give not only to Ceará, to Brazil, an opportunity to participate in this new kind of ore, which is rhodium, platinum, palladium, that we don't produce in Brazil, and most of the countries in the world do not produce. And if we're talking about environmental, I would say platinum and palladium are very important, rhodium as well. So these new kind of batteries, they will demand those kind of products to be manufactured. So the world will be hungry very soon for any kind of the deposit. And in fact, what happened with this project in the past, that the companies that have been looking to that, one day they decide to just go away. And they were planning to throw away all this exploration core information. And we got hold of this. We listed in London, especially looking for a company like ValOre, which is part of the Discovery Group, which I think Jim needs to cover, because this is a very successful company. Like a lot of countries in the world would like to have one company of the Discovery Group involved in their projects, and Brazil has, and in Ceará has I think is very important. And at the time that we found that this project was going to be in much better hands with ValOre, we gave away the project to them, and we focused in a project of $1 and maybe easier to be explored and maybe easier to be put into production. So I think we Brazilians need to be a little bit, I would say, open to new ideas. And we need to realize that sometimes we are not good enough. We need help to develop some things. And that's what exactly I look at. When I done the agreement with Jim, I will know that the project would have been in better hands with him than was with me. And you need to give away. It's like your son. You grow, but you not necessarily need to keep him under your house. Let him take the world. And I think that's what we were looking for when we found ValOre and we found Jim. He's doing a great job. He's looking for things that we were not looking before.
Yeah, and I don't think it's us doing it better than you, Luis. I think it's just focused on exploration, which our shareholder base in Canada, specifically Discovery Group, which you were referring to, they really like to invest in exploration. So they are a little more patient, perhaps, than investors that want immediate mining production. It takes a little bit longer, but what we're trying to develop is a district. And, you know, in terms of economic development, there are certain areas of the world where there is a nickel district, let's say in Western Australia or in Russia, Norilsk. There are gold districts or camps like elsewhere in Brazil. And these are, once developed, these are multi-generational mining camps that provide huge foundations of development for communities. And the spin-off effects of having large mining operations, if properly run, and if those companies are investing in the communities, it raises the education level, it raises everything in terms of quality standards, because there is margin in the operations, and there's the economics to actually invest in the local communities. So they have huge impacts. So what we're looking to do there is put together these large exploration programs so we can prove that it's a district that's worthwhile to be developed by us or a larger player, but developed responsibly.
Okay, we're heading for our final round, and Luis and Jim, they have just told us something that's very interesting. That's that this project, this Platinum project, that's now under their work. It was developed in the 70s by large corporations, and we are now at the 2020, and Brazilian company has owned this for a while, and then it's now international again. And what should the Ceará state, what could Ceará state do to give to companies that are interested in exploring projects or worldwide? What information should they provide? What information, geological or even infrastructure information or other teasers that would bring attention from mining companies overseas to look at Ceará? That's I think that's an important question for us, so we can do something to make Ceará more interesting for mining.
Well, I think that what you have done personally for us, for ValOre, has been phenomenal. 2 people on this call with me, the real personal attention, which is the introductions to those members of the government that are in charge of making decisions on permitting and advancing projects and improving projects, to actually know those people, to be able to communicate to them. So access and communication are critically important. I also think too that when a major mining company is considering developing a district, they want to look at the local population and know that they're educated, they have the capacity to be a part of the whole operations, whether they're running their own businesses or being employees. So, you know, education levels are really important. And what we found in Capital more specifically is the education level is great. The communication is great with the local population and also the surrounding area. That's really important, because to understand what mining is really important, because if the population is afraid of mining, then they don't understand what we're trying to do, and things can go horribly wrong. You want them to be educated as to what it really means and what we're trying to work on. And then in terms of access and infrastructure, Ceará State is excellent. You know, the roads give us great access to the project, the power, the internet, the ports, the airports, all of the supply chain is excellent. So I think that those things are good. As the operation gets bigger and bigger and bigger, of course, we will have more demands, but I know that right now, even now, would be able to handle it. So, you know, you're doing many things right. Perhaps what you need to do is the same personal touch you gave ValOre and me, you know, broadcast it to the world a little bit more. That's all. And I'm not sure if it's specifically marketing Ceará State at a conference instead of just Brazil. You know, in addition to Brazil, market the state and educate people, because I think that they would really be impressed.
Thank you. Luís, for your final words.
In my opinion, again, Ceará is very well served by location. You are very short to North America in terms of flight distance. You are, in a logistic terms, with your port able to evacuate or to any place in the world today. And I think if you take those skills, I would say, and add a little bit more of what companies would be interesting to have in terms of, I know that you don't have a Secretary of Mines, for instance, but consider make a division or a Secretary of Mines in the state, which will welcome and guide and expedite all the procedures. I'll give you an example. At some point, Jim was trying to bring an equipment that was not available in Brazil. And we almost get hold of this equipment for 3 months. And this equipment was critical to help explore the project. I think that kind of, it's a small thing, but saves them a lot of time, saves them a lot of money. So we used to call, like, if you can have like an emergency room where a miner can go there. And one thing very important, you need to keep the memory of the states. Like a company comes, a company explore, a company takes samples. Well, the company goes away. In the whole Brazil, there is no facility to deploy that information, to deploy the core that you taken. And this, like I said, by, I would say, lucky, I was able to keep all the core, I was able to keep all the information consolidate, and that make Jim successful today. But if I was not there doing this information are gonna be put away, lost it, and probably would not have this opportunity. So I think that is a matter of a state to be worried about this. We need to keep the memory of the exploration and the probably not let those initiatives like Jim and other companies that come to Ceará be wasted by some bureaucracy, by some tax barrels, whatever. The world is fighting for those investments. We should realize that and attract that as much as we can.
I would agree, Luís. You know, the difference, for example, between a Canadian province and the state of Nevada, for example, in the United States, is exactly what you're talking about, because Canadian companies are required to provide the data that they generate through their exploration for future people to benefit from. And in some states of North America, that is not the case. So you're really never advancing. Once a project is dropped, it's lost forever, unless you buy it from a private owner. And really, that doesn't help anybody. That's not helping making leaps forward. It's just baby steps.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Luis. I think this information is very interesting, because all this data that is created by the exploration companies, that in some cases they won't develop the project, it goes public in the A&M. Mm-hmm. And got lost on our shelves in many documents that have no use for us as a regulation government entity. And probably the states, special Ceará, that's the one that we are talking about today, and they could do this work of creating a library of their own geological information that has been already explored. So you can have this in an easy way to put it to the companies that are interested in the state. I think that's a very interesting point of view. That's a very interesting information that we created today, so we can have the government of Ceará to work on things that they are not difficult, that are not very costly to do, because these are public information. And with the technology that we have today to arrange this data, I don't think it would be very difficult to do it. So I'd like to thank Jim. Jim, thank you very much for attending our invites to be here with us today, to talk with us from this international point of view, to show Ceará that a Canadian big company such as the Discovery Group and the ValOre company are working in our state and doing a great job developing the mining here. Luis, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for the information that you gave us. I think all this information that you provided us today, all this talk that we did today, will be very helpful to show investors that Ceará, besides not being a great producer of mining in Brazil, of ore, it's a place that's very good to look at. And that's what we are trying to do here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Posso dizer uma coisa?
Por favor.
Agradeço por o apoio que vocês me dão. Tenho muito orgulho de estar convosco nesta entrevista e agradeço todo o trabalho que vocês estão sempre a esforçar e ajudar companhias como a ValOre a ser sucesso no estado do Ceará. Obrigadinho.
Muito obrigado, Jim.
Fortaleza reduziu a taxa de contágio do coronavírus. Mas a pandemia não acabou. Temos que continuar a nos prevenir. Lave as mãos constantemente. Não toque nos olhos, nariz e boca. Higienize suas compras e alimentos. Se sair de casa, mantenha 2 metros de distância de outras pessoas. E sempre use máscara. A prevenção ainda é a única forma de nos proteger do coronavírus.
Patrocínio Sebrae, a força do empreendedor brasileiro. Apoio Governo do Estado do Ceará. Novas ideias, novas conquistas.